Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Conquer everything and compromise nothing. This show brings you real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. If you have never liked small talk and have been on a personal growth journey for a long time, stay tuned as Martine and her guests share empowering stories. Now is the time to own your past and look toward your future with hope. Believe in your dreams, and all that you want to achieve is possible. Transformation Coach Martine helps you accept and love you for you. It's time to listen to your heart and tap into your unlimited potential. You have the answers you need inside. Sometimes you just need the right guide to help allow transformation to happen. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. Happy St. Patrick's Day. My guest is, she's with the program today. I'm not, but that's okay. Happy Friday. It's a good day as always. Fridays are awesome. So for those of you who don't know, my show is every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, and my show is about hope. I love to bring stories to you from my guests, from myself, sharing what we have gone through, what we have overcame, and just to show everybody that, there is hope no matter what has happened to you or what has gone on in your life. And sharing your story brings you a lot of power. So without further ado, I want to welcome my guest today, Teresa Velardi. We are together part of a 3-part anthology, and also she is also the publisher of the Gratitude 3-part series of gratitude books. What could be better than that? Welcome, Teresa.
Hi, Martine. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So in the whole theme of the show, can you tell us a story that of overcoming, just a story of something you've been through and the steps you took to get out of it and turn it into a blessing?
Sure. I have many of them, but I'll go with the one that really changed my life. So okay. On a day long ago, in what seems like a galaxy far, far away, I stood at the altar with my then-to-be husband, and after a number of stumbling blocks that should have told me along the way that maybe I was making the wrong decision, I stood at the altar, and when the priest asked me, do I take this man to be my husband, I heard this little voice inside me say, Teresa, don't do this. So I listened and I waited and I looked at him, and he was high as a kite, had issues with drugs and alcohol. And again, the priest asked me, I looked around at everybody who had come from far and near to be at this wedding, and I was like, how can I say no with all these people here? And so the priest asked me again, Teresa, do you take this man to be your husband? And then I heard that little voice again that said, Teresa, don't do this. I have something so much better for you. And I was like, I don't know, what do I do? Well, needless to say, I said yes. Because I put everybody else's desires and the fact that they were there just for me for this particular day, which should have been the happiest day of my life, but was tainted by that ever-present, Teresa, don't do this. So to make a long story very short, about, I guess maybe 10 years into the marriage, I decided that I had what was called a come to Jesus moment. I looked in the mirror, and I had the person that was looking back at me, I didn't recognize. I had given away and stopped doing all the things that really made me happy. I am an artist at heart. I make pottery. I'm a ceramic artist. I hadn't touched clay in years. And I write, and the only writing I was doing was in my journal, which was my salvation, actually, because it was a place for me to safely put my feelings where nobody would see them. And I've been journaling for years and years and years, and I have a passion for writing that I just didn't feel at that particular time in my life I was honoring who I had been created to be. And so it got really real with myself. And along the way, I met someone who was part of a 12-step program. And I attended Al-Anon, where I learned how to take the focus off of everything that was going on around me and start focusing on what was right for me. I could tell you war stories for those first years of my marriage. It was terrible. And he was emotionally, verbally, and had become physically abusive. And I knew I had to get out, and I didn't know how. And so, to make a long story short, there came a day when I said, I'm not doing this anymore. That moment in the mirror when I didn't recognize myself was the beginning of my transformation, because I felt completely lost, completely unheard, completely unseen, and I completely abandoned who I was. And so I needed to get back to me. And so I started doing things that would, little steps at a time. I would get a babysitter where I normally wouldn't do that. I worked a full-time job, but there were times when I needed a babysitter to go to a meeting or have coffee with a friend. And, and then I got accused of all kinds of other things, which weren't happening, but it was crazy. It was crazy. Finally, I decided I was done, and I was not staying in that same area, because there was a situation that happened with my son. He was about 14 or 15 years old, and he was supposed to be with his father. We were separated at the time. And he was walking home. He wanted to walk home, got out of the car. They had a tiff, they had an argument. He got out of the car, and his father followed him out of the car, and he literally punched him in the nose and broke his nose.
Oh my gosh.
And so I said, that's it. Not only am I in danger, anytime I see him, but we were separated, but now he's going to hurt my kid. I don't think so.
Right.
So that was the point when I said, I'm done. And I put my house up for sale, and I moved to Pennsylvania. And the first thing I did, convert the garage to the studio. First thing I did was, and I find, for me, artistic expression is something that has always been in my heart. And when I separated from my husband, and I was making pottery at my house, I had gone to a pottery class. Through this whole time, I had gone back to a pottery class. And I had done it since I was in high school, and I had stopped doing it. And then finally I found some place to go. And then I put a wheel in my garage, and I was making pottery in the garage. And so when I was out of the house, I had a fall event in my house. I converted my whole house. That you walked in, and the living room in front of you had shelves and pottery all over the place. There was a display on the table in the dining room. There was hot cider on the stove. There were fresh baked goods. There was great music. I was like, oh, I'm all about this,
Yeah.
This is who I am. So that's
it.
when I really started to take myself back from the insanity of what I was living with. And one thing that I learned through this whole thing was to listen to the whispers. Listen to that still small voice that says, Teresa, don't do this. Or Teresa, maybe you want to go a different way home today, or whatever the case may be. I've come to learn to call that voice the voice of God. And I live by that now. So my life is filled with, I do what I was created to do. I help people get their stories told in books, because they're so important. I can't tell you how many people have heard my story and have moved out of very harmful situations. And I was afraid to talk about my story, but because I had so much hope for my future when I moved here, and because I had so much hope I heard a lot of hope from people who I had shared with. When I was asked to write something for a book, a compilation book, very much like how I met you, Martine, I finally decided to let go of, the what if. People think like, what if somebody reads it that will tell him? What if this one? I never mentioned his name. I never, I don't have to. He doesn't read anyway. So I mean, somewhere along the line, if he finds out that, what's he gonna do? What am I gonna face? But I've been able to, through the hope that I feel, having moved away from that situation and not allowing those kind of situations and those kind of personalities to come into my life any longer. I've been able to live a really, a life filled with gratitude, a life filled with great people, a life filled with lots of hope and generosity and abundance, and it just is, it's a whole new world. I could sing.
Ah, I love that. Listen to you talk about just the whole, pottery and having this event and baked goods and just being in your element. It's like there's nothing better than that.
Yeah,
It's like when you
exactly.
really discover who you are, and it's taken me pretty much my whole life for that, to discover who I am. And I'm still kind of on the path, like, what do I really want to do? And listening to listening to that little voice, which I say the same thing, God's voices, because I've had quite a number of those, and I happen to be one of those that sometimes need bricks dropped on her head in order to really pay attention. But I'm learning now that we're going to listen the first time here. We're not going to need that anymore. And I know that when I do trust and I do listen, everything just seems to flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting like that. Like, I believe God will get your attention any way he possibly
Oh
can.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. During those Al-Anon meetings, there was this woman who used to always say that when she saw a cardinal, she knew that God was watching out for her. And I was so, at that point in my life, I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Like, who would really say something like that? And on a morning when I was out for a walk and I finally decided to ask God, okay, if you're really there, I need a sign that you're really there, because I thought for years and years, because I said yes at that altar, that God was punishing me. And what did he show me? Right smack in the middle of my front yard, in the maple tree, there it was, the chirping sound of a cardinal standing in that maple tree. And I saw it and I went, very funny, very funny. God will use anything to get you back.
One of my colleagues, she always says God has jokes.
Yeah.
That's how she always puts it, and my mom always said, which is a very common phrase. I always thought it was my mom's, but I know it's not. Now is just, if you want to hear God laugh, tell me your plans.
Yeah, exactly. We make plans and God laughs. Exactly.
Yeah, because it's just like, or my coach will say a lot of times, oh, just bless our little hearts, we try very hard, but it takes a while to sink in, or it takes a while just to trust ourselves, and you were also talking about like sharing your story and thinking perhaps your ex-husband may see that. With our anthology, the one we did together, I worried too. It took me, even though I can share my stories all day long, it doesn't affect me at all anymore. But when I was really writing it out for someone else, to read and making it for them, making sure I hit all the details, I did worry about my dad. He's the only one of my family members that's alive anymore. Of course, not my children, but my family, my family that I started with. He's the only one that's around, and I worried about him seeing it. And then it's like you said, he's not going to read a word that I write. He's not interested in anything that I write, and he really doesn't read anything anyway, like you said. So it's like, whoever's listening to right now, share your story, because our stories are meant to teach us, but they're really meant for everybody else. Yes. They're meant for other people to get the lessons out of what you learned, and giving other people permission to share their stories.
Exactly. Yeah. And the way I feel is, if you've been faced with something that's been challenging in any way in your life, this is my opinion. If you've been faced with something that challenges you or puts you in a situation like I just described, or what you just described, Martine, I feel if we've gotten to the other side of it, if we've gotten out and we found a way out of the insanity, if you will, then it's my obligation to share how I got there, because somebody else may not know. And it's all the concept of giving people a hand up. you know, like help reaching out and helping the
sure.
person next to you or behind you or wherever they are. And it makes it a lot easier for them to find their way when they just don't know. And it brings
Right.
that light of hope to somebody's life that they may not have had they not heard your story.
Right. And just the fact that they're not alone.
Exactly.
You
You're
know,
never
that's so
alone.
important to know you're not alone, because you're not. There's so
No.
many of us that have gone through so many different things, and we can help love and support each other through it.
Mhm.
So we're gonna take
Absolutely.
a break, everyone, and we'll be back with more good story stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine. My guest today is Teresa Velardi, and we've been talking about stories, sharing our stories, how important it is to share our stories. And we're going to talk about Teresa has a book that I was really privileged to be a part of last round, which is A Daily Gift of Gratitude. And it's a wonderful book to open up, just like I wrote a post about it today. Like sometimes, you wake up in a mood, or you wake up fighting with your partner or whatever in your head, and nothing's actually ever happened, and you haven't even put your foot on the floor yet, to get up, and these things happen. And it's nice when you can pull up a book that if you can't quite find gratitude for yourself, you can find it from someone else's stories, right? So Teresa,
Exactly.
tell us about this and how it was born.
So this is one of those things about whispers from God.
Yeah.
A long time ago, I got this little nudge about a daily gift. I heard a daily gift, a daily gift, a daily gift. And I was like, what is this? And then I heard the first one is gratitude. So that's what this is right here, daily gift of gratitude.
Yes.
And so Martine, you wrote something in this. So for
I
those of
did.
you who want to read Martine's story that she put here, go ahead and get it. It's on Amazon. But the reason that I did this is because, I believe that abundance of any kind starts with gratitude. A grateful heart leads to all things good.
100%.
And I love what you said about something to read before your feet are on the ground. So every morning when I get up, it's what am I grateful for today? And sometimes I can answer that question, sometimes I can't. So this is just like one page. It's just one page to read per day. And maybe there's a quote or maybe there's a saying on the other side. And it just is enough to get me out of whatever it is that I'm feeling
Yep.
or I'm not feeling. And it will inspire me to find those things that I'm grateful for. And then my particular practice is that I journal at least 3 things that I'm grateful for every day. And I write them down. There's something very healing I have discovered. There's a difference between saying that you're grateful for something in your head or for people that you are in your life. There's a big difference between actually having it in your head and actually getting it out of your body and onto a piece of paper. It just makes it more real. It makes you feel it even more. I say that often in order to be able to travel through, it has to go through your heart. It has to go through your heart. So whatever it is has more power once you take it out of the mind, out of the body, and put it on the page. And that's why, in my opinion, journaling is so important and so powerful.
I agree
Man,
100%. And some people, like my husband, it's like he's not really a journaler or anything, but he will type stuff in. And to me, typing is not the same.
typing is
It's
not the same.
writing. Yeah, and I'm one of those people. Excuse me a second. I just love pretty things anyway.
Yes,
Pretty
yes.
stationery. I've got tons of journals that they're all kind of whatever one speaks to me, wherever I happen to get it, I buy those because it just lights me up. I like to pick it up and
Yeah.
it's just so different to put it on paper than
Yeah, I
a
agree.
computer.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And it's a safe space. Your journal is your journal.
Yep.
It's your safe
Yep.
space. But back to the gratitude thing. So the Daily Gift is a series, as you said, an
Yes.
anthology. Each one of them has a different topic. So this one is a Daily Gift of Gratitude. The next one is a Daily Gift of Hope.
Love.
And then the one coming right behind that one is a Daily Gift of Kindness.
Yes.
And I also have a lot of people asking for more gratitude. So I'm going to put another daily gift of gratitude so that people can get a second edition of that. And you can find out all about them on the Daily Gift Book Series website. It's dailygiftbookseries.com.
Yeah.
But the stories that I get, it like makes my heart sing when I get stories from people. And especially because a lot of them are like the gratitude stories and even the hope and the kindness stories. It's like, how did you get out of a situation? Did gratitude help you to get out of a situation? Or how about my situation? I had my son ask me a crazy question about how I ended up in that marriage. And I said, well, I had to be there in order to be able to have you. And for everything that happened, I'm grateful for it all because I wouldn't have him. And that was the biggest gift. You always find the gift in something. Always find the gift in something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I had something, kind of similar to me. But would I go through it all for my kids? Oh, 100% I would. They're the biggest blessings I've ever had. And there's a lot of things that I would walk through in my life just to know now that I before I had children, knew things that I was going to be like extra on the lookout for just because of what's happened to me. We can always find the goodness in there that we can share with others and help others to just to go through it.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that when somebody comes to realize that there is a different way of thinking and there is a different way of being with whatever your circumstances are, it's like a light bulb goes on in their head and they're like they just, for example, I have somebody in my life that I was at their house one day and the woman was like ranting about everything that was wrong, everything that was wrong. And I was, when you have a grateful heart, stuff like that actually physically hurts you. Like I don't live in that space. I live a very quiet life. I live, I live in this space of gratitude. And not to say that I don't get mad every now and then, I do, but you know what? I don't go around complaining about everything in my life. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
And this particular day, she was ranting and I'm like, all right, stop. If you don't stop, I'm going to have to leave because this is physically hurting my body. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I want you to tell me right now, just one thing you're grateful for. I'm not grateful for anything. And practically in one breath, I said, oh no, what about the fact that you have a roof over your head, that your husband loves you immensely, that you have breath in your lungs and you have life? What about the children that you birthed? What about the grandchildren that they gave you? Shall I go on? Oh, she changed her attitude. I'm like, start thinking about the things that you're grateful for instead of complaining all the time, because there's always something to find to be grateful for. Always.
There is. That's so interesting. Like I was just brought stuff like that this morning and I knew I had to put it out there, because we can get down this rabbit trail and just spin. We got to jump off into gratitude and find what's good in our lives, because it doesn't matter. And I am somebody who, like so many of us, have been through a lot of loss, a lot of hurt, a lot of all these things. But I've also had a lot of good, And, yes, and we can choose to focus on that instead.
Exactly. And then the other part of that is that whatever you focus on expands.
Yes. It does. There's no doubt about that.
So if you want to live in the mud, have at it. But there's a way out. There's a way out. Yeah.
There is. Mud, quicksand, whatever, you can find a way out.
Yes.
Yeah. There's always somebody, it's kind of like that. It brings to me the mind of that, like that Bible story, where I was waiting for you, God. Well, I sent a boat, I sent this, I sent that, and you didn't grab onto any of it. There's always somebody there to help out. He always makes sure.
Exactly. And you find your way. And then if you start focusing on, like, I have somebody in my life now who's going through a traumatic experience. And I said, just keep focusing on what you're grateful for. Find something good in every situation that you're faced with. And it'll turn around. I promise you it will turn around. Because you know what happens? People who are causing, like the woman that I described, that kind of thing, that kind of chatter in this ear, if you're doing the gratitude thing in this ear, eventually this kind of like says, well, she's not listening to me anymore, so I better not talk about that. I either have to find somebody else to tell, or I'm going to have to change my attitude because I really want this person in my life. You know, so it's wherever you want to be. And you know, what is it that's it? You're the product of
Product of 5
people
people.
closest to you in your life.
Yep.
Yeah. So I promise you, those people are not the closest to me in my life.
No, I really make a concerted effort because I really pick up on things, just like you said, you feel it in your body. No, you know, there are times, of course, that whether it's a coaching session or even, you know, listening to my kids and some of the things they're going through, and I'm sure you know that nothing hurts as much as what your kid's going through.
That's true.
You know, we can be supportive, we can be loving, and then we have to clear it and get to gratitude.
Exactly. And hope that for them too, that it will, their circumstance, whatever is hurting or whatever is happening at the time that's causing them to feel however there's always hope that there's another side to everything. You know, like change is inevitable. Everything changes from one minute to the next. Life is not the same. So
no, and there's just seasons, right? You know, that's just like we have the fall, winter, spring, summer. There's always a season and a change, and yeah, we can find the good in it and take it into the next thing. We'll have evidence that we've been through, you know, what we've been through here, we got through it. Whatever we're going on over here, we'll get through it as well.
You take the evidence and you take the lesson with you so that you don't do it again.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. Yeah. So we are going to take a break again, and we'll be right back with more storytelling. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine. And my guest today is Teresa Velardi, and she is a publisher and a storyteller, and she is sharing some of the books that she has done, some that we have done together, or I guess, well, a couple of her books I've been a part of, which has been so cool. And we were talking about on break that she has a journal as well that can kind of help you, because some people, it's not easy to put it all out. Like sometimes, you know, you have blocks, like a writer's block or whatever it is, even with journaling myself. Like sometimes I'll start out by writing like, this is the dumbest thing, I can't think of anything to write about today, and then suddenly it starts flowing out. So having something that prompts you is really good. So tell us about that, Teresa.
So I shared about being a potter, right? So but I didn't realize that the first time I put my hands on clay, I knew how to use the clay. And actually the teacher said to me, you've done this before. And I was like, well, not in this lifetime.
Right.
If there are other lifetimes that I did in another lifetime. But one of the things that I said earlier is that you know, you have to become who you were created to be. I believe that we were all given gifts and talents for whatever it is that we have to do during our time on this planet, and that we have a responsibility to leave it better than we did when we got here. And that's my belief. But so I created this journal. It was originally for a workshop that I was part of. It's called Simply Become Who You Were Created to Be. And these are my hands, and this is one of my pots. And so the journal is filled with scripture, and it's filled with things to prompt you. There's some pictures in here that I got permission to use from the person who created them. But one of the most powerful things is, you know, people don't realize how powerful their words are. Every single word that you speak has power. And the most powerful phrase, I believe, and what I was taught, is the words I am. And I actually heard Joel Osteen say one day that whatever follows I am, whatever you say after I am, will find you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So in here, there's a section about I am. Okay, so I'm gonna just read briefly for you here. It says, Did you know that every word you speak has power? Yes, every word, especially I am statements. And I believe
Mhm.
myself that the Holy Spirit lives within us. The God who created the universe resides in our hearts. And every time you say I am, you invoke the power of the Holy Spirit. So before making any I am statements, make sure you're willing to receive what follows those powerful words. And this
Yeah.
gives you an example. I am blessed, I'm gifted, I'm talented, I'm forgiving, I'm grateful, I'm fearless, I'm strong, I'm
Mhm.
courageous. And I had to, courageous is one that I had to keep telling myself through my life, through my experience. So, I've learned that through the power of becoming courageous, writing it down, I am courageous. All right, what does that look like today? All right, I'm going to make that phone call that I'm afraid to make because I already have in my head a script that the other person is going to say that never happened. So, I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to take little steps toward becoming what I say I am. And there's a place for you to write your own I am statements.
Yeah.
So this way, that's just one of the things that is in here. And then there's places where you can journal your thoughts. There's little things that you can
Nice.
color.
Mhm.
There's scripture at the top of the corner on some of these pages. And there's just a lot of things that I was inspired to put together to create this. And my dedication on the page, I didn't even write a dedication, but I wrote that who this is for: to all who have forgotten who they were created to be, enjoy the journey
Mhm.
and remembering. So
Nice.
that's just one of the things that I got to share. And I also want to remind everybody that they can read Martine's stories, and she can read one in the Fourfold Formula for All Things
Yes.
Wellness. She's in there. She's
It's
in
such
the
a good
Daily
book.
Gift of Gratitude, and you're coming on for the Daily Gift of Hope, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and then there's another book coming behind that I know you're part of too, with Peggy
Yeah.
Lance. Yes.
Absolutely. I've signed up for all three in the series and couldn't be more excited about it. And it was a project that was brought to me in the beginning, and I thought, I don't know. And then it was like, I'm so glad that like I got that second, like, hey, you really need to look at this kind of thing. That voice, I ignored it the first time.
Yeah.
And then the second
Yeah.
time, it's like, I am just so grateful to be a part of this community with all of us.
Yeah.
Very uplifting, wonderful people that just want to do good in the world.
Yeah, that's it. Do good in the world. Just
Mhm.
do good things for you and for the people around you and for the world in general.
Mhm.
I do believe that there is a power, there's a collective consciousness. I believe that, like gratitude is contagious. I believe
It
that hope
is.
is contagious, kindness is contagious. The
Mhm.
feeling that you get when you do something like for example, do you ever go through a line at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or any place, and person before you pays for your order,
I've
and
had
then you
that. It's pretty
pay it
cool.
forward and pay for the person behind you? I've done
Yep.
that a number of times.
Yep.
Or, hand a cup of coffee to someone who's standing on the street, have not, they're looking for breakfast or whatever. Do
Mhm.
something kind. There's lots of stories about that coming forth.
Yeah.
And all I can say is that what you focus on expands. I said this earlier. So if you
Mhm.
focus on being kind, you're going to find ways to expand your kindness, and you're going to bring people into your life who are living a kind life or a grateful life
Yes.
or a hopeful life, and there's going
Mhm.
to be a whole series of these books. So, and I'm looking for stories. So if you or somebody wants to be published, um, and you only have to write about 300 words.
Yep.
You get
That's
an
nothing.
opportunity. Yeah, yeah. And before
Easy
you
to
know it,
do.
you'll be up to 600. And you're like, okay, and you can put more than one in there. Just go to the site and see what it's all about.
Yeah, and it's exciting too because it's just like when you're sharing a fun story, an unbelievable story. Like I wrote two for your last one, and one of them in particular, just like it just lights me up every time I think about it.
Yeah.
And it will, I think, the rest of my life because of the kindness that I received. And yeah, it just makes you want to, like you were talking about, paying it forward in Starbucks or whatever it is. When somebody does something for you, it's like, it's just like, you just want to do it. You want to keep it going. You want to keep that energy going because
Yeah.
it feels really good.
Yeah.
And, you were talking about the I am statements, and I shared a little bit with you on the break that, there's somebody in my life that was told to do an exercise of I am. And he just can't really see some of the things that, like he doesn't feel some of the things that he wants to write. And I just got a tip today. It was just today, how can I, instead of I am, how can I be? And that's a good thing to put out there too. And then when you, how can I, just think about that with curiosity,
Right.
no judgment, no nothing, just curious, how can I be? It's the same with you want to manifest money or whatever. How can I, how can I do this? What would be fun? And then to put that fun, curious energy in there with it. It's the same thing. Like, how can I become an athlete? How can I become, like for me, powerful, masterful coach? I've been saying that I am for years now. I'm getting there. Many more powerful than me, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we all have our own, our own paths to travel. I mean, so there may be others that you perceive as being more powerful than you, but then those people may say, oh, wow, I wish I was like Martine because she's whatever. We all have our own gifts.
Sure.
And so the people who are meant to be in your world will be there. The people who are meant to be in my world will be there. The one thing that I always caution people about is getting stuck in the what if conversation, especially when it comes to writing. Like we said earlier, I was afraid that my certain people might read what I write. If they're going to read it, they're going to read it, but they're going to find their own faults in that situation. They're going to be more angry with themselves that they created the situation that had me write about it in the first place. But the one thing that I remembered it, and I tell this to people because a lot of people love the phrase "what if." What if? The what if is pure fear. It's worry. It's things that may never happen. So how much time do I want to spend in my head about things that may never happen? So I decide to just throw the what if conversation out with trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is, like I was mentioning a little earlier, we could spin ourselves out on this craziness if we don't just halt.
Exactly.
And
But I
that
like
we
what you
can
said
control.
I like what you said about how can I, how can I be more courageous, how can I be more kind? How can I be more whatever I put on the I am statements? And then sometimes there were certain things that I actually had to write and then try and figure out on the other side, because I claimed it now that I am a certain way. And now I have to be that. Now I have to be that in order to be able to stay in integrity with myself. I have to be that. So I had to practice being my I am statements.
For sure. And it is, I think, just this whole personal development world, personal growth journey, it is a daily thing. It's not something that we are ever there. We never get there. There is no there. Personal growth doesn't stop until we are gone. So, it's okay. It's okay. We can be supportive of each other and know that if we're kind of back in a place that we were at one time, well, there's just a little bit more to work on, but that's all right. We get better each time.
Exactly.
So it's pretty amazing, actually.
Indeed.
Yeah. So we're going to take a break again in a moment, and then we'll come back with final thoughts and more, and again, repeating. Actually, Teresa, let's say that first. Where can people find you in order to get to be a part of your book or just to learn more about you?
So you can go to dailygiftbookseries.com. And if you want to know more about me, teresavelardi.com, Teresa without the H, TeresaVelardi.com. And those are the two best ways to find me right now.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll be right back, everyone. Welcome Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine. My guest today is Teresa Velardi, and we've been talking about stories, sharing stories, and transformation, and taking a step out into the unknown, which is what we have to do sometimes in relationships, and just, well, knowing that we want a better life for ourselves, and we may have made some decisions that we did at the time, and we know better now, so we're making better decisions, right? Just like the Maya Angelou quote. So, Teresa, let's talk about taking responsibility for our life and decisions that, well, some that we've made may have affected our children, and, taking responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things, one of the hardest things for us to do when we feel like, for example, for a long time, I spent my life in victim mode. Like, I wouldn't be this way if he wasn't doing this. He. I was always looking outside of myself. And I wasn't looking to God, because I thought that everything that I was going through was punishment for saying yes instead of no at the altar, right? So, I had to learn how to take responsibility for myself and for what I was doing. And I had to take responsibility about what was I teaching my child? What was I teaching my children? If I was going to stick around and take this kind of verbal, emotional, and ultimately physical abuse, what am I teaching my child? I'm teaching my child that that's okay, and I quickly realized how important it is to make sure that I kept him safe, number one, and that I was an example for what living a productive, meaningful life was about. So, and while I was in the marriage, that wasn't happening. That all happened when I said, enough is enough. And I left. And then, ultimately my son has a entertainment business. He's a DJ. He has a restaurant. He's highly successful. And in the meanwhile, the other side of that conversation is nowhere in the picture. Yet I have a great relationship with my son today. We had a rocky road, and you will find, as you change, your kids are not going to know what to do.
That is 100%.
They need they have to have their own adjustment period, and they will find their way. And one thing that I had to learn along the way here, Martine, and I don't know if you've experienced this, I'm not always the person that's going to be the teacher for this kid,
Right.
I'm not always the one. And that old phrase, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
Right. And it was true for me, and it's true for everybody. But I also believe, and we talked about, the fact that, being a single parent, we feel alone and so forth. But at the same time, it's like, are we really alone? If I believe in God, and I believe that he will never leave me, never forsake me, as it says in scripture, then I'm not alone. For people who don't believe that's not their God, they want to talk about the universe is always speaking to you, or the universe is always giving you exactly what you need, or whatever. I mean, the universe there is something higher than us, I believe.
Yes.
And, as long as I stay tuned in, I'm okay, and I'm never alone. I never feel like I'm alone in any situation. I did when I felt like I was being punished, and I was being, I found myself in the corner crying or whatever, but not today.
Right. Yeah, I am familiar. I just remember the exact day actually where I thought, God, I am actually on my own. But more on my own was meant me and raising my kids. I was on my own, and but I wasn't not supported. I had plenty of people rooting for me. I had plenty of people I could call on, and I am a God girl. I know God was there, and there were so many times where I thought, oh, I see you. Thank you.
Yes.
Whether it was just, getting the job that I can support them by myself easily. There's so many signs that I'm not alone, and even being part of moms groups, and getting together with the people that we could all support each other, and we're never truly alone.
Never. And I call those little moments that you recognize it, I call those God winks.
Oh yeah, I love that too. And it's just kind of cool. I know there's like a little comic strip or something I'd seen before, or just kind of like, I know that was you. Thank you.
Yeah. I know it is you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Even when you lose
Yeah.
your keys and you're looking around, okay, Lord, help me find the key. My grandmother and my aunt used to invoke Saint Anthony. Oh, Saint Anthony, please come around. Something's been lost. It must be
Yeah.
found, right?
Yeah.
All right, God, show me where they are. And then it'll come to my mind exactly where they are. And sure enough, there's
Yeah.
the keys.
Yeah, and I love that. Those are really cool moments. Like there's something like, oh, I left this in my purse, or I did this, or I did that, and it's like, thank you. Hey,
Mhm.
I'm pretty smart. All right, you're working good today. This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, um, what would be so for somebody who may have been struggling with something similar to you, what would be like your just another, little bit of advice and just something that somebody could hold on to?
I would say, remember who you are. Remember that you were created for a reason, for a
Yeah.
purpose, and that you don't have to be stuck in the insanity of whatever it is you're going through. In my
Mhm.
situation, and if you're going through physical abuse, there are resources for you, and no matter what state you're in.
Mhm.
The Women's Advocacy Center here, look for women's advocacy. Just go online and find anything you can about um people who people who advocate for you and can help you
Mhm.
find safe space for you and your children or whatever. I had to leave my home. I had to leave my home for a
Mhm.
period of time, and I had to be kept safe. um and so there are resources in every state, and just look online, look for victims organizations. They'll
Mhm.
help you find a safe space. Connect yourself to people who have are working with coaches or therapists who have group therapy. Get support in one way or the other. Find people who are going through similar things or have come through similar things. um, get yourself a daily devotional of some kind. It doesn't matter whether it's
Mhm.
one that's religious, whether it's faith-based. Get
Mhm.
yourself something to read every single day that will empower you to recognize who you are, because we
Mhm.
forget, like I had that come to Jesus moment. I looked at myself in the mirror and said, who are you and why are you here? Those were the two
Right.
questions I had to ask. And that's, I think, what we're all supposed to figure out. And then you can turn it around to something that I use on my show, Conversations That Make a Difference, where I
Mhm.
say, I'm fabulous, blessed, and highly favored, living in my greatness with passion and purpose, using my
Mm.
gifts and talents to make a difference in the lives of others, and all of God's great universe is conspiring in my favor. And I have that
Yes.
on my whiteboard. I read it every day, and that's how I try and live my life.
That's wonderful. We need to have those things. One of the things I tell my clients too is just to keep like a list of evidence of things that you've been through,
Mhm.
so you can refer to it like, hey, I've done this. Or keeping like little note cards or whatever that a client may have sent you or a family member sent you a card, keeping those handy just to remind you that you're loved, that you're special, that you are a warrior, you can get through anything. It's
Mhm.
all possible.
Yeah, and if you have children who are in school and taking their lunch to school, put those little cards in their lunchbox.
Yes,
And
yes,
they
I
love it.
love
They
that.
love it.
I love doing that. Little notes, even like when my husband's gone on business trips, I'll put little notes in his suitcase or something, just stuff like that to remind people that we love them. So
Yeah.
yeah, and on a note of sharing, by the way, I'm just going to share with all of you that I am taking out into the public now here that I am quite successful at getting people TED Talks. If this is something that you want, this is something I absolutely love to do. And it's not like a personal story that you share, it's an idea worth sharing, and something that could benefit the community where you are or any community that you would be speaking. And yeah, so this is something that I'm doing. If you're interested in a TED Talk, it's on your bucket list, a dream. I would love to help you with that. And Teresa, one more time, where can people find you?
teresavelardi.com or dailygiftbookseries.com. And the publishing company is Authentic Endeavors Publishing, and everything about that is on that
Mm.
site. All the imprints and everything you need to know.
I love that name. That's really great. Anything with authenticity is speaks my language for sure. I love
Exactly.
that. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you very much for all that you do, and keep doing that. It's pretty cool. And we'll have to talk more about
Yes.
an idea I have. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I've loved our time together.
absolutely. Thank you. I have too. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, every Friday. Thank you. Have a great
Thank you for tuning in to Transformation with Martine, real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. Listen or watch live every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com as Martine and her guests have deep, meaningful conversations, sharing empowering stories. Step into your passions and lead with your heart. If you are ready to accept and love you for you, visit martineemmons.com and start allowing transformation to happen today.